Phones have become necessary tools for much of the century. They are being used by younger and younger people. Their use and presence in schools has become controversial.
Many districts, regions, and even entire states have implemented partial or full bans on student cell phone use.
But implementing bans hasn't always gone smoothly. At Torrington High School, students protested a new policy that required phones to be locked in magnetic pouches during the day.
Torrington High School students are voicing their concerns in the school's Little Theater.
We were planning for this to be peaceful, and it wasn't supposed to turn out this way.
Torrington administrators say the decision came after years of concern about distraction, disengagement, and excessive screen time. Magnetic pouches are created by a company called Yonder. Yonder pouches were quickly introduced at Torrington High School.
We spoke with our principal, Leanne McGuire, who was previously an administrator at Torrington High School.
They felt it went from a 0 to 100 approach. So you have phones, you have access to them all the time, and boom, next year change, and this change, and you won't have access during the day.
Torrington High School students are voicing their concerns in the school's Little Theater over a new cell phone policy the Board of Education approved last night. But it started to get rowdy after they say the superintendent interrupted this student.
So that was probably one of the most difficult times for me as an administrator there. So that was very hard. Students spoke out about it. Some students planned a sit-in in the cafeteria where they weren't going to go to class, and they sat in the cafeteria. There were others that were really upset. So it was a very one specific day following the board's decision. And there were some disciplinary infractions that came out of some behaviors that happened. So it was hard. It was a hard day.
Other states have moved more decisively. Iowa passed a state law banning cell phones during the school day. Schools saw results.
A 20% decrease in referrals for behavior. And for grades 8 through 12, physical aggression decreased by 56%.
Academic performance improved too, with higher grades and fewer failures.
A 12% increase in A's and B's, with a remarkable 60% decrease in failing grades.
But not everyone supports bans. Parents worry about not being able to reach their children in emergencies.
They wanted to be able to have that immediate outreach and connection to their family to let them know what was going on.
Some students use their phones to manage serious health conditions. Others say their phones help them stay focused or reduce anxiety.
I use it to help myself with assignments sometimes. If I'm not getting the material, I can look it up easily, or I can look at other resources.
People like to listen to music, and they focus like that. That's how I focus.
We also wondered about students' mental health. Dr. Joseph DeLuca, a clinical psychologist, says the teenage brain is still developing and highly vulnerable to the effects of constant phone use.
Adolescence is a developmental period, where the brain is very sensitive to social and emotional influences. The brain's prefrontal cortex, in particular, that's responsible for decision-making and planning. That's not fully developed during adolescence, right? So it's still growing. Adolescents may struggle with making good decisions or engaging in risky behaviors. And that certainly can come into play with cell phone use, right? Maybe not always making the best choices. There was one recent study out of the University of North Carolina not too long ago that found among middle schoolers a link between checking social media and changes in an area of the brain associated with social rewards.
Still, DeLuca says banning cell phones entirely may not be the answer.
One of my main messages today is we're obviously never going to remove cell phones, right? Kids are always going to have them. So we need to make sure that kids are able to use these cell phones in safe ways. So I think whatever schools do using these policies or bringing in other policies, we need to acknowledge that kids are going to use these phones no matter what. How can we help them be good digital citizens, be safe users, use these phones in positive ways as much as possible? I think there are a few different things we could do to help young people be good digital citizens. I think we all, right, kids and adults, can inform ourselves of safe social media and technology use, right? For example, how to respond to cyberbullying. If you're being bullied or if you see someone being bullied, right? How do you respond to that? What do you do? What do you do if you get in a tricky situation, especially for younger kids? If someone's asking for, really personal, sensitive information, right? How do you handle that? Who can you go to for support? Who can you talk to? How can you make sure that what you're reading online is true, right? We know there can be a lot of misinformation out there. How can you make sure you're getting the truth? How can you check facts, look at different points of view, but make sure you're looking at the evidence? I think those are three among many other critical factors needed to be a good digital citizen.
State Representative Maria Horn agrees. Local communities should decide what works best.
Having this conversation at the local level, and particularly with the students affected, is the most important place to start. I believe strongly that those conversations need to happen at the local school community level to figure out what's best for that particular community and how cell phone use is impacting students.
She says schools do have the right to limit cell phone use.
It is perfectly legal for a school to ban cell phone use. And that's because the First Amendment, as other amendment rights, are not absolute, and they can be balanced against other concerns. I think it's perfectly legal if a school decides to do this, especially given the increasing data on harm, both to the education and to the social environment and to the mental health of the young people in general.
Warren also believes the state has a role to play in supporting local decisions. For schools, it can be an expensive issue. Yonder pouches cost $25 to $30 per student. Representative Horn believes that the state has a role to play in supporting local decisions.
If a school decided to enact a policy to ban cell phones, in fact, if increasing numbers of schools decide to take up the issue of banning cell phone use or limiting cell phone use during the day through the use of Yonder pouches, for example, I think the state ought to pay attention to that. And if it is becoming a statewide issue, and certainly if the state decides to take action to limit or ban cell phone use in some general way that requires the use of Yonder pouches, state ought to be thinking about how we make that possible for schools.
Some schools are exploring flexible solutions. Phones allowed at lunch but not in class, or stored in lockers. The goal? Balance.
As schools across the country wrestle with this issue, Region 1 students, educators, and families are thinking carefully about how to balance connection, focus, safety, and learning.
Whatever the outcome, one thing is clear. Students deserve environments that support both their learning and their well-being in a digital age.